welcome to another episode of Simon Says, and we have Lyra here today.
Hello.
And Lyra, today we're just kind of like looking at what's happening around, right?
Yes.
So, have you seen any interesting news? Locally and overseas also.
I think overseas, obviously with the Ilhan Omar's alleged attack, but more interestingly, I felt like it's the Fed chairman pick.
Yeah. We can get there. But remember our last episode, right? We kind of talk about the Minnesota thing, and I was just thinking about this because do you heard Walz, right? Governor Walz was just saying that this looks like the beginning of another civil war. So it's like the whole tension between state and federal, which by the way, America, of course, they have very clear division about what can be done. Then we look at Malaysia also. Did you see, I think, Prime Minister, PMO Minister Azalina was saying that MA63 does not cover petroleum.
Honestly, I felt that so absurd. When I read it, I also felt, okay, even if I don't know so much about law, I also felt like it's a bit absurd because resources belong to the state.
Yeah, and so her argument is, yes, it belongs to the state, but PDA, which was signed by, PDA is a federal law, right?
It is.
And of course, I think if we go back and look at the record, probably we'll see the majority of member of parliament from Sabah and Sarawak supporting PDA.
I do think so, but also I felt like it was more, how do I put it? Like a bit more force to approve, because it's like, it's almost like, I think that's when, the states, Sabah and Sarawak, have been diminished from like a territorial partners to just being a mere states compared to all the other states that were within Malaya. I don't think that, in the first place, it doesn't really honor the spirit of like, hey, let's come together and form a Malaysia, a new Malaysia. But then after that, subsequently, you have this PDA that was being, it almost felt like it's being coerced to do it. Obviously, it's difficult to say because, obviously a lot of MPs will have approved it. But the thing is, I felt like all these timings are so near to each other that it just felt like it's planned.
So what do you take these arguments, and people were saying that Rahman Yaakob and even subsequently Taib, they were in no position to challenge the federal power. So they did what they thought would be the best option, which is let's just play around. And you do whatever you want at federal level, but we become warlord at the state level. Are you sympathetic to this kind of argument?
No. I felt like that's a whole lot of baloney as well. Yes, no doubt the state representatives, they bear a lot of weight in this whole situation, but I don't feel like we were at a position of like, hey, we have no other choice. But obviously it is kind of like a win-win sort of situation. I would think that was kind of like at the height of our corruption as well. Obviously until now you see a more overt sort of manifestation with 1MDB scandal, but it's like Malaysia has never been a stranger to corruptions. So it's just that whether or not it's more federalized or is it more state-wide sort of corruption. So I felt like there is that sort of mutual interest that were at play. I'm not sympathetic at all.
They will refer to the incident with Watt Stephen and say, he was trying to fight the federal, and then he died, right? And then of course you look at 1991, Joseph Piring tried to do that, and UMNO came in. So that's what GPOs always want to say, right? They preserve so-called the Sarawak identity because UMNO never coming.
Yeah, but I felt like it was kind of interesting. If you kind of look at it parallel with the Iran protests right now, yes, they were under such cruel oppression by the leaders, and yet I think now is like such an opportune time for them to actually rise out and say, hey, all these cultures are not Iranian cultures at all, and they were like just literally protesting. I think you kind of need enough support and enough of that tipping point to cause people to, I mean, not to say you come out to protest, but I felt like things could have turned the other way around if Sabahan and Sarawakians, they were just standing united and say that, nope, I mean, we don't care that the MPs have approved all these things, but the thing is like, it was never the deal in the first place. Shouldn't there be at least a referendum or things like that? I mean, I felt like that part was never been properly given to the people to decide. And I mean, obviously, before that, like 10 years ago, prior to this whole PDA, you have the local election that is being abolished.
Yep.
And why? I mean, why are you taking away the rights of the people to actually make a choice for themselves? So I felt like with all these things, I mean, I'm not happy with federal government, but neither am I happy with how the state government is trying to say that, okay, I mean, yes, I mean, we will worry about our safety, but aren't you thinking about, I mean, shouldn't you be more statesman-like to protect the rights of the states?
Yeah, I mean, when it comes to GPS, I think, I mean, we said that a few times here, they were very smart in terms of rebranding themselves, that we are separate from Barisan Nasional. But of course, you know, history, if we look at all the steps and all their collisions, they are basically the same pocket, right? And it's only when UMNO became weak and, you know, finally Barisan Nasional was ousted, then, you know, GPS, I mean, to their credit, I would say they were pretty smart to kind of like, let's just be on the opposition for a while. And they survived, because that was the window where, you know, at that time, of course, you have the new Harapan government under Mahathir. Of course, it's Mahathir, you know, and so they could have gone against the GPS for corruption and things like that, but they didn't, you know. So I mean, time will tell, you know. But now, of course, in Madani, they are part of the government. But I totally agree with you. You know, you regardless of what happens, and even some of the good things that happen in Sarawak now, you can't really look past the corruption of I mean, they call themselves GPS, but in fact they are just Sarawak Barisan Nasional. But one of the things that come with these whole tensions, I mean, now we pivot a little bit because earlier we talked about federal and state, right? The other thing, of course, is the whole spirit of Borneo first, right?
Yeah.
Sabah, Sarawak first. And it's interesting when you look at MAGA, right, and the American First movement, you really see a little bit of fracture in the last 6-7 months. And really, I mean, the way I analyze it is there's a difference between America first and America only.
Yeah, I mean, I totally agree. I mean, because even if you just look at how the sanctuary cities, they are starting to, like, they have to choose if they want to, I wouldn't say whether or not they want to align with federal, but it's more like whether or not they agree with the spirit of law. And so you're having to choose between, okay, are we going to be a lawful state or are we going to be a lawless state? So I felt like there is a lot of lines that are actually being drawn over there. So I feel like people should look at the more nuanced aspect of this whole thing. It's not so much of like just Borneo first. It should be something like, okay, what's the spirit behind all this thing? As in, are we trying to honor the spirit of the law, or are we actually trying to like just be, okay, we couldn't care less and we just let things run rampant on its own? So I felt like it's kind of interesting, as in the whole, obviously the unfolding of the whole MAGA principle, as in like whether or not you're going to be like for America only or America first. I think you can begin to see like people like Tucker Carlson. I felt like these people really, really have gone off the ledge.
I mean, it is, of course, initially, I think it's their hatred against Israel. I mean, more specifically, Prime Minister Netanyahu. And then you have people, of course, Candace, no need to say, she's like already off the rail. Then you have Matt Gaetz, and to a lesser extent, people like Steve Bannon, etc., etc. So do you see like a clear difference between America first and America only? Now I mention this is because I want to bring this concept back here, that it's very easy that Sabah and Sarawak first can easily become Sabah Sarawak only. And I already can feel that there's people like that from even people we know and things like that, that their mindset is, well, we're just taking care of Sabah and Sarawak. We don't really care what happened to the rest of the Malaysia. And that's really the spirit of Borneo only, which to me would be a big mistake, because we're in this together. You can't just I mean, that's why it is important in terms of the context, right? We talk about Azalina. I mean, to me, it's more like a posturing, more like a bargaining, more like this is my first offer, and you don't see very big reaction from Abanjo and things like that, and that's why we're just discussing in a group that in the end, I think it's going to be a political solution. But do you feel like there is a danger that the whole issue can spill into Sabah Sarawak only? Because sometimes you speak to those people who are more independence inclined. That's how they sound like. They sound like Tucker in terms of the America only.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at especially last year and this year, I mean, especially since October 7 of what happened in Israel, I mean, I felt like there is a shift in the atmosphere, as in the mood, whereby people are beginning to be a bit more aware about colonization.
Yep.
I mean, they are trying to say that, okay, I mean, let's just chuck away history altogether and you just paint like British government as just colonizer. That's it. I mean, I felt like there's a lot of danger if you go down that route, because I mean, there's also a lot of good things that they brought to this nation, as in like the railway system, the education system. So you actually do benefit from all these things. So you're not as backward as you like to think. But I felt like there is that sort of hindsight that we are looking at it. And if people will actually choose to think, hey, I mean, are we gonna like honor history, or are we gonna like just let's see if we can just like delete the history altogether?
Yeah, it's like a rewriting, right? It's like I mean, I totally agree with you that anti-colonial spirit. In fact, that is what is actually powering the whole woke movement. It's like the whole critical race theory that in the first place, all these people are bad and evil.
Yeah, I feel like there is a danger between like you think, because I mean here it is so, I mean we are very very much like taking care of the interests of the majority race here. So I feel like there is so much emphasis, like the affirmative action, if we don't deal with it carefully, it can actually cause like the Bumi Putras in Sabah and Sarawak to like just think that, hey, I mean, I deserve to be elevated to a certain level. So I felt like there is a linking between that and also
I never
just
thought that.
Sabah and Sarawak only. So I mean, I was kind of like pondering on it, because we also have a majority race or people group who are, I mean, you're trying to like make a living, but obviously, I mean, I do agree. I mean, a lot of help is definitely needed. I mean, especially to not just to Bumi Putras only. I feel like there are certain smaller towns that are like deserving of certain upgrades in the infrastructure, but they are not given that. So I feel like that's the part that actually the state governments will actually need to emphasize, rather than just having to, okay, every time there is election, then let's look at
let's tar the road.
Exactly. But so I think we're kind of like beyond that, and we're not so much of just looking at like small little things like this. I mean, it goes into the well-being of the people. It goes into how are you gonna like build the nation. So I feel like there's that component that is being neglected, and so if people are not careful, they can actually come into that place of like, hey, I mean, I'm being victimized here. So therefore I need to cancel the rest who I think are the oppressor. So then you can also, I think there's also a lot of comparison between Malaysia and also Singapore. You say, hey, okay, here's a successful case of Singapore leaving Malaysia, and Singapore is doing way better than Malaysia.
Yeah, that's the thing that you hear some people talking about the independence-leaning people and say we could be like Singapore, we could be like Emirates, but I really your point about the entitlement, I felt like that's something I never really explored before. But it's really interesting, because it's true. I mean, yes, they will say, look, MA63 give us a special right. Yeah, we know there's a special right, but that special right doesn't cause you to say, look, the rest of the federation is irrelevant and none of our business. I just felt like this kind of attitude is not going to help us in terms of nation building. So, but it's kind of tricky, right? Because so much emotion is at play and things like that.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like definitely, I'm more for decentralization. I mean, until one day that
we both said before that we are okay with the possibility of leaving Malaysia, but it has to be done properly and things like that. Are we in a position to do it? But I think we are more in terms of, let the states have more power. Basically you want to reduce reliance on government and central control, which unfortunately every day you are seeing that people say they want this, but at the same time they are relying on government, right? I mean, talking about Malaysian.
Yeah, because when you have hardship, it's easy.
Turn to the government.
Yeah.
Find a solution there.
Exactly. I think it's something that people do need to learn to actually, okay, let's see if there is any alternative ways that we can actually prosper in the midst of this whole thing. So I feel like there is a lot of relearning that is required because we are so used to a system and the whole entire generation just grew up with that sort of system.
Yeah.
I mean, that's all that we know. But obviously, there's a lot of great models out there to learn.
Yeah. Big government is such a big thing. And of course, earlier on you mentioned about the whole anti-colonial. Do you know the refurbished Sri Kakosa Negara?
Yeah.
And, we're just showing, they show the whole chart. I just have it on my screen now. And it reads, Ekonomi menjara penjajah British di Tanah Melayu. And they were just talking about, at that time, Malaya has so much rubber and tin and how many billion in pound those days. And basically, yeah, the colonizers are here for resources, but you compare with all the colonizer, we probably received the best, right, in terms of British. And even today, you look at our social political elite, they still always look to the British, right, for everything.
Yeah, I thought it was kind of interesting because you also have like the whole Guthrie organization that is being taken down. I mean, it literally in London Stock Exchange. I mean, those sort of things that are also happening before our eyes. It's just that we didn't know that was that Mahathir initiated this whole thing. So I felt like maybe there are some of these parts of the history that we do need to relook and actually see what's the main intention of doing that, because you have a perfectly fine private entity and suddenly it's just been okay, let's establish our identity here. So it's it's either we get it or we don't get it. Those sort of mentalities. So I felt like there's a lot of these sort of things that actually slip through the cracks that we were not careful about.
Yeah, Mahathir probably kind of embody that anti-colonial spirit.
Yeah.
But it doesn't seem to help. But anyway, so one of the other topics, I know we're kind of a bit random. We sort of talk about it in the introduction, is Federal Reserve, right? And we are not expert there. But one of the things I find, the general person don't really understand what is the Federal Reserve, So maybe you can kind of enlighten people a little bit, because I think people think Federal Reserve is like Bank Negara or Bank of England.
Yeah, I also thought so until you explain that. Hey, it's all the chairmen of the big banks that the big commercial banks that and come together and say, hey, let's decide the interest rate together. So I didn't know. Honestly, I thought it was like Bank Negara. Okay, you are just regulating, but actually, what are you regulating? So I also had a very naive position towards that.
That's why initially when I heard and they were just saying look, Federal Reserve, it's the whole name is just so wrong, because it is not a reserve. If you say, look, you have by right, every country, the fiat system, right? If you want to print money, you need to have some kind of reserve. But we know all around the world, everyone has moved away so far from the system. They just print. They don't care. You don't need the gold reserve or whatever. Then federal implies that it's controlled by government, but it's not. The governor, president can nominate. I think he just nominated a new guy, right? Kevin Walsh. But the governor are all the commercial bank big players, you know. So like we use Malaysian example, can you imagine all the governors are from public bank, Maybank, Colonial bank. It's like your commercial, you decide the regulation on yourself. Yeah, I mean, even you talk about professional body like, you know, board of engineer, board of surveyor, bar council, medical board, and you know, they're still subject to law made by government, right? So the whole thing about Federal Reserve is just, kind of ridiculous. But I was just looking. I did a quick Google search and just see, you know, what is the function? Okay, so the function, of course, they say go back to Jekyll Island. You know, the architect of Federal Reserve is because there is that financial crisis, right, at the beginning of 20th century. So they wanted a body that is able to lend money. So who is the body? It's the commercial bank themselves.
Of course.
So it's like, well, so then of course over the years we start to find out how they lend money. The way they lend money is by printing money. So when Nixon kind of stopped the gold peg, so I mean there's just so much. I mean, you think about all the things happening with the Lehman Brothers, all the financial crisis is kind of linked to this policy, right? But what's your? I mean, now that we kind of break. I mean, every time I say this to a lay person, they are beyond shock. They thought it's like Ben Negara. It's not. So they were like, "Oh, how can it be? How can it be? How can it be?" You know. But anyway, what's your? I mean, I know we're both not like
economists,
not economists, not expert, but we kind of seen enough. But what do you make of the whole like Trump is having this kind of public argument, right, with Jerome Powell, right, the outgoing chairman of the board. So what do you make of all these things? You know, it's like, is it part of Trump wanting to reshape the whole world? And or you see, it's more like his economic sensibility and things like that. Because I think somebody, I just read a little bit because John Carney, I think you know we referenced him a few times, right? And because before Trump announced this new candidate, Trump took a shot at Powell again and just say he should have, you know, bring down interest and things like that. And I think Carney kind of make a comment on ads and he just said, look, some of you think that Trump is trying to introduce some new economic theory. In fact, he said Trump is bringing a very old school theory, economic theory that is, you know, you need to have less debt. You need to rely less on lending. And this is all the economic theory that governs the country pre-Federal Reserve, financial crisis of the 20th century, pre-Jekyll Island. So he just said, look, Trump is basically saying we go back to the roots, whereas the Federal Reserve introduced a system where you can print money forever. So it's interesting that like people, sometimes I talk to some people, they'll be like, oh, but that's the way, you know, it's like they almost accept the Federal Reserve system like gospel. But you think about it, it's not like Bank of England. It's not like Bank of Japan. It's not like Ben Negara.
Yeah, I mean, I thought it was kind of interesting that you brought out this point because, I mean, prior to that, I mean, obviously, I was kind of like fixated in like thinking, hey, can a president actually remove a chairman just like that? You know, then I thought like, hey, maybe let's just look behind the reason. And you also have like the proposal that he did where he was like trying to like just standardize all the credit card interest to just 10%. I think that was like mind-blowing. I mean, can you imagine all the credit card debts would be like reduced tremendously? So I do feel like there is that part where he was like constantly just thinking about the interest of the people, and like instead of having to you try to make ends meet, and you could barely bring anything to the table because you're like just paying interest and interest and interest. Is like, I mean, so he was just basically trying to tackle that because he felt like, hey, we should be paying the lowest interest rate anywhere in the world. So I think that's like really his goal.
Yeah, that's his goal, right? I mean, it's a very pro-business kind of approach, because like when you lower the interest, then your debt ratio is also lower, and then you have money to do business. Of course, if you fail in your business, then you are in more debt. But without the initial capital at a reasonable, I mean, today, let's say you want to do business and you want to have some kind of credit line and things like that, then you'll be like, okay, bank will be like, okay, I can give you 1 million, but it's going to be like 26%.
Crazy.
Then like you hear, you already like, I mean, it's like, you say you go to a supplier, they can give you 2 months credit, you know. And now, you know, I take money from bank, you want me to pay 26%. It's just ridiculous, right? So, yeah, but it's kind of all linked together, right? The whole thing that... Now let's move on to another thing, which is because, of course, 2026 started off with Venezuela, and then started off with USA leaving Paris Accord, officially leaving WHO, and also a whole series of organization, right? Then threatening people left, right, and center, then go to Davos. But anyway, the whole thing is people are like I just find it like so interesting that like Malaysians, some of the very corrupt people, and will be like saying, you know, how can he do that? You know, how can he go against UN? And but the thing is, I think a lot of people kind of forgotten, right? After World War II, everyone was in shambles. And this is a point that the late Rush Limbaugh always make, you know. He said at that time, America basically can do whatever they want because they are the only country that is still in one piece. And the fact of the matter is, you talk about Truman and all those, they were pretty restrained, you know, like Truman could have, you know, Truman basically is like, it's like, you know, when dealing with Japan's surrender, you know, there's a faction saying that you should remove the emperor and things like that. Truman is basically like, you know, MacArthur, you go and sorry, I don't care. And you really see like they have a very, I don't want to use the word casual, but they basically allow a lot of countries to continue to exist, and, you know, their culture to exist. And I mean, if at that time they want to press down on everyone, I think everyone have to bow their knee. So this is Rush Limbaugh theory. He say there are some people in the State Department and things like that. They are extremely unhappy with what happened because they thought America should have done more to take control of the whole world. So
yeah, I think that's kind of like the beauty because I mean, even you look at like just recently, I mean, Nicki Minaj was just flashing off her gold card, and I mean at that time only that I was like thinking, isn't she like an American or what? Then only that I realized, oh, she's from Trinidad, and then I realized, hey, actually, if you really look at the whole logic behind, like, okay, whoever that can bring revenue to the nation, I'm gonna offer a citizenship. I thought that was like
how much was the gold card? 5 million?
Idea. Yeah,
5 million.
What a brilliant idea. I mean, on one hand, you are saying that nope. I mean, I don't want to have like illegal immigration. And really, I think America, the beauty about America is that they value freedom so much, they value liberty so much, and it's like what you mentioned earlier on. They could have just caused them to be subservient to their culture, and yet they decided that nope, Japan, you're gonna like just continue to have your Japanese culture and things like that. And
yet Japan like copies so much of American culture.
Yeah. So
I
I
mean,
just thought it was kind of interesting because like, I mean, I guess that's where you begin to have like, okay, like cultures like BLM rising up. But on the other hand, you also have like Iranians that are like looking at preserving their original culture as the Persian culture. So I felt like that was kind of interesting balance because it's like you have the rise of this like counterfeit sort of culture, and yet you also have the rise of like a genuine culture that actually people are trying to preserve, and at the end of the day people are just wanting to have like a freedom to express themselves. So I felt like that was like really, really interesting because I think Trump is really really for the freedom of the people, as in like you can be as free as you want so long you are legal, so long you remain within the context of the lawful boundaries. That's it. That's all I'm asking. I mean, I'm not like asking you to commit crimes and things like that. So I felt like he's like putting a lot of things into law and order.
And because of that, he wants to dismantle, you know, when he was at Davos, he basically was saying open borders, globalism was bad. So what represent globalism more than United Nations, right? WHO, like WHO wanted to set a pandemic policy, right? That if they declare pandemic, then their pandemic rules applies to all the countries. So US is like, forget it, we're out. So you see, like some of the commentators from more of the liberal and people, unfortunately, which is the majority of our civil rights political class, they think United Nations is good, they think ASEAN is good, they keep on thinking all these committees are good, but Trump is just basically smashing all these things up. And that's why they are like screaming, you can't go and take Greenland. Actually, he's not taking Greenland. He's just saying, look, the whole, and that's why it's so interesting that Rudd, right, the Secretary General of NATO was just saying, look, you want to have a Euro army, dream on. You're not going to do it because United States has been providing. I mean, he's one of the most respected politicians in Dutch, ex-Prime Minister of Dutch, and he's laying out. I mean, of course, he's a Trump supporter, obviously, but he's just laying out the facts. The whole Western security has been provided by US. So actually, people don't understand that's a leverage. Trump always works on leverage, and he's like, you know what? What's the biggest leverage? I'm not going to support NATO. If United States military exceed from NATO, the whole NATO will collapse.
Yeah.
So just saying that you can't, and that's why when all the different nations went to Greenland and say we can defend it, I mean, it's such a joke, right? I mean, I think 10%, 5%, they went there, and I think it was the Italian defense minister, right? It's like, is this a joke? You know what?
Kind of like Greta Thunberg, right?
Yeah, it's like so. Anyway, coming back to some of the behavior of Trump is he is doing that because he has leverage, because America still has leverage, and he doesn't need to play the globalist game. And because the globalist game has been like it has been. I mean, look at the foreign. I mean, USAID, all those things. And one of the things they kept on saying, I mean, is a theory out there that BLM, all these agitators, they receive a lot of NGO funding. So with Rubio, everyone else cutting the funding. I mean, they say even in Minnesota and things like that, the number of protesters is like kind of dwindle down compared to Floyd's time, So yeah, I mean, I personally think he's doing a great thing because he doesn't want us to be stuck in this kind of globalist system then where the government has so much control. I mean, I was just talking to David just now, because he was from UM. I said, did you hear about UM? And they're making all this ridiculous law. Like students who stay in now have curfew, have dress code, have sound rule.
Oh my!
It's too noisy, and so now the implementation has been delayed because people are protesting, and even though the students already obtained police permit and they still 100, 200 students want to do protest and you need like a lot of police. It's like, obviously you're seeing the authority, and then you look at social media control, and look at all the things that government wants to track your spending. And one of my friends was just saying that, whether don't use so much of the QR payment, because government can just have a whole ledger on how you spend your money.
Oh my goodness.
Back to cash.
Yeah, but I mean, it was crazy.
But the whole world is becoming like this, right?
I mean, PMX himself is also from UM, isn't he?
Yeah, I mean, maybe the issue is a bit beneath him for now, but overall, even though
that's how he kind of like started his political career. I mean, to cause the next generation not being able to voice out politically, I think that's like really too much line that has been crossed.
It looks like censorship is coming back. I mean, all around the world, and of course, in the days where Mahathir initially didn't want to censor because of MSC status, and then you get Malaysian Insider, Malaysian Kini. So that kind of contributed to the political tsunami 2008. They eventually changed your government. So now I think they kind of regret. But do you feel like, you see Fahmi every now and then want to do this, want to do that, or
he should be banned.
Who is the interior minister? Suddenly I cannot remember his name. I mean, Saifuddin. these two are is like the most annoying one. I mean, I know they have, like Saifuddin came out and tried to defend Sedition Act and things like that. So I don't know. Are you really a party of reform, or once you have power, you don't want to lose? But it's not easy, right? It's not easy for people to be like, look, let's give responsibility back to people.
I think it does take a lot of courage and actually a lot of self-confidence to actually know that people can govern themselves.
Like EPF now, let's say.
Yeah.
And so I was just talking to Colin this afternoon, because he's like, then we say, look, yeah, some people took EPF and within 5 years they lost all their money. Then he said, yeah, it's a fair point, but then this is what he said. He said, but I don't want people to manage my finance. Full stop. And if I manage badly, I'm responsible. I pay the price.
I mean, you kind of have that in Singapore, don't you?
They already started. So at what point is too much? I think that's for people to voice out and to do something. If you don't do anything, the government will just encroach more and more and more. Then we'll become like China.
Yeah.
So I'm still amazed that, especially the older generation will be like, we how we wish we can be like China. I mean, you have no idea what kind of system they are in.
Yeah, I mean, you
never lived there before, so that's why
political removals.
Yeah, I mean, it's like if they deem you against the state, you're gone. So that's why whenever Malaysians say that to me, I only have one reply: you have not stayed there as a citizen, so you are not in a position to comment.
If you stay there, these people.
If you stay there for 30, 50 years, okay, fine, I can respect your opinion, but you're not. But anyway, I think our merry-go-round kind of come back to us already.
Yeah, it was a fun one.
All right, so I think we kind of run out of time already. So maybe the next episode we shall have a bit more structure.
Yes.
Okay, so until next time, bye-bye for now.
Bye-bye.